Satnam, yogis and yoginis. Hello, welcome Infinity. Good to see you here. We're gonna go today on the last part of this series on number 7. After this, we will conclude the introduction on number 7, and I call it introduction to number 7. It's been 10 videos, but it's really just an introduction into it. We will have to revisit this number when we know more about the language of the other voices so that we can complement a little bit more what's happening with number 7, and particularly where do we go from number 7. There's going to be some particular sequence that we are not exploring right now, but we will go into it when we have more language. So today we finish this introduction to number 7, and we're going to do it with a beautiful topic which is called the soul's journey. The soul's journey. We're going to see how we visit this planet Earth, and through our visit to this planet Earth, we go through different stages, and they are pretty much aligned with 7 years. So every 7 years, there's a different life stage. There is a number of kind of studies and philosophical discussions around this 7-year cycle, and you can find it in other places. You can find some of it aligned with some psychological studies, some are more just purely philosophical. Today we're going to approach it from the yogic perspective mainly, even though we inform our yogic perspective from what we know from science and neurobiology. Satnam Infinite Stories, hello and welcome to the stream. Good to see you two here always. It's nice to be, it feels like at home when I see the two names next to each other. So, very good. We're going to start 7-year cycle, life's journey, the soul's journey, and we're going to do it with a really nice diagram. We're going to go straight into it. And the topic is the soul's journey. And the diagram is mainly based around 2 curves. And the bottom curve, let me put it like here, it's more clear. The bottom curve is about what's happening to the body. And the top curve is what's happening to the spirit. And when we are reading spiritual teachings, when we come upon the word of spirit, some trick that Shiv Charan Singh taught me some time ago, he said, look, whenever you read spirit, change the word with consciousness, and let's see what you make out of it. And it's very interesting because it seems to be like interchangeable words, like almost synonym in many ways. And it's not that it's the same thing. However, the more the spirit comes into the body, the more conscious you become. And the more you grow in awareness and consciousness, the more the spirit inhabits in you. So they are basically linked hand by hand. So in this drawing, what we can see is, if we can add some numbers here, we're going to see that we start from 1 cell, and we grow like many cells dividing, right? This whole process, we can see it in different aspects of our life, but let's just say like that. We grow from the 1 to the 9, thinking about numbers, yes? From the 1 to the 9, through 9 stages. But the spirit is descending into life and comes down from the 9 and going into the 1. And we're going to explore what does this mean, and we're going to explore it very carefully and slowly and step by step, little by little, bringing some good language to every one of these things. But we can already identify a number of things. In these 9 stages, and every stage, I said this is like 7-year journey, so every stage is 7 years. We can already say, well, the first stage is going to be, maybe I'm going to add these numbers like here, 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 and here, here. This is where the stages finish. And then from here onwards, it will be after 9. So the first stage will be between 0 and 7 years of age. The second one between 7 and 14. and so on. Let me just write them down. Let me concentrate so I don't make any mistake. To 63, and after 9 would be 63 and onwards. So this carries on. Yes. And we're going to explore every one of these stages. We're going to see what do they mean in the context of our life, what do they mean in the relationship to our spirit, what challenges can we find in the different stages, and what can we do with those challenges to overcome them. So this is really like a guide, like a manual for living in life. So it's really important that this diagram, and I realized that, I've been doing videos for a year and a half now, and I haven't written this diagram yet. And I think it was because it can be, we cannot just, draw it and say a few things about it. We have to go in depth. If we want to honor the diagram, we have to go in depth. So I was waiting for the right opportunity, and so the right opportunity came with number 7. So when you look at it like this, immediately you notice a few things. One is there's this area of our life, this part of our life, then there's this one, and then there is this one. And what is this? What is this spirit outside of the body? Because the point of contact is here. Well, in an overlook, when we start life, we start as more connected to the material and the body. We start trying to recognize what we are. We are these human beings with this physical body that we have to learn how to use, including the mind. We have to learn how to use that. The mind is also part of matter, even though it connects to the spirit. But we can try to bring concepts like spiritual concepts to children, but the real conscious experience of the spirit, because in the first stages of life, we are very connected to the spiritual realm. We just arrived as a soul into the planet, but we are not conscious of that. It's like children are happy, but they are not conscious that they are happy, so they don't know how they are this happy. And then we lose it at some point, and we don't know how we lost it. And somehow we are challenged to find happiness back in life later on. In the beginning of life, everything is quite simple, and the spirit is very much present. And actually, many children remember past lives or have some sort of spiritual innate feeling of what is divine and what is God. And you don't have to explain it to them. They just have this relationship. And somehow after 7 years of age, and I don't think there is a coincidence, by the age 7, the ego has formed. And by then, the ego has created this barrier. We believe in Maya, and Maya creates this idea that we are separate from everything and we also separate from the divine. However, as we come into around the ages of 21, 28, most people have had some sort of spiritual contact. The spirit comes and contacts them in some way. You have some sort of experience that is not explainable in a rational way, and you can choose to discard it and carry on in the rational logic way, or you can challenge yourself to meet that experience and to say, well, that's not explainable, so what can that be? And then open yourself to the spirit. So there's this point of contact, the 4th stage. If we look at the stages, this is the first one, this is the second, third, 4th, 5. Let me do it like this. 6, 7, and 8, and 9. This would be 9, 8, 7, 6, 4. Yeah, it would be like that. So as we come into the 4th stage, in this age, between 21 and 28, something happens, and if you can open yourself to that experience, then the spirit merges with the body, and there is a period of something happening. I will talk about this period in a moment. And maybe you have your own experience. If you do have your own experience between 21 and 28, and you would like to share it, feel free to write it in the chat or in the comments below the video. I will give an example. I was talking about this with a friend of mine that we used to share the space with, the office, and she would say that, she said, oh, that's interesting. When I was around that age gap, I don't remember her age, she said, I was someday I was in the kind of like the Girls Scouts, like the Boy Scouts for girls. I don't know the name, but maybe Girl Scouts. And she was chopping wood, and she was very tired. They had been all day out. They had been camping and preparing the tent and gathering wood for the fire they were going to do. And she was chopping wood. And at some point, as she was chopping, rather than let me show it like this. So imagine this is the log and this is the axe, and instead of chopping like that, she went like that. And she said, the moment that the axe came down with the strength that I was using to chop all wood, but the moment that the axe touched my hand, in the very moment that it touched, it flew away. The axe flew away. And she was like shocked because she was kind of sleepy. She didn't realize, it's not like she stopped herself. The axe flew away. And it's like, there's no explanation to that, but there's some sort of kind of a miracle, something happening, some kind of grace protecting her from losing her hand. So I like that example. That's a beautiful example. But I've heard many examples over the years. When I talk about this concept to some people, they always have some example. I have my own personal example for that. Maybe someday I'll go into that. But yes, so the Spirit comes and it touches us in some way. And then here comes the moment, this period around between the stages 4 and 6. Sometimes we call it the cotton wool. It's like there is you don't know you are up, you don't know if you are down, you don't know if you are going up or down. It's like mixing. Let me hear about Infinite Stories. Yeah, that's exactly when I started my spiritual journey, right around 1990, 1991. I think I started with You Cannot Die by Deepak Chopra. Yes, great. So something called you to that. Yeah, maybe it was that book. It came to your hands, you read it, and then something triggered, right? There's lots of there can be many little details. You know, we could have some contact with the Spirit here. Maybe our parents are very spiritual and they talk about God a lot. Maybe you go to church. But it's in this stage when something transforming happens, when the beginning of this stage comes, the cotton wool. We say cotton wool because the head can be like that. It can feel like, what's happening? Where am I going? What is going on? Things are turning upside down. What I thought it was up is actually down. What I thought it was down now is actually up. And we're going through a period of very intense transformation, this area here. And then coming out of that, this is like a very cyclical. This is very linear. Life is very linear. Then life becomes very cyclical, and then life becomes linear again. You can take the ideas of linear and cyclical and think about what could that mean, having a linear life. Is like going in one particular path. Cyclical is something is changing, but then I'm in a rhythm and I cannot stop that rhythm because it's like a loop, like caught in a loop, like the Groundhog Day kind of thing. Getting up, going to work, 9 to 5, going home, then earning enough money to pay the bills, to pay the car, to go to work and continue working. And you're like in this endless loop that you don't know how to get out. That can also feel like a cycle, like a loop, like this cyclic area. And this could be very strong felt between these age gaps. And then coming on towards the elder years, then we go back to a certain linearity. So that's the last part. And if we think about this in terms of development, we could say that this part is the main years where we develop our body, the physical, let's say. So this is physical development, this is emotional and mental development, and this is more the spiritual development. So physical, emotional, and mental, and the spiritual, the three developments. We could do even like two little lines like this. And I will put it very light in yellow. I don't want it to attract too much attention. So this would be the physical development, emotional and mental. And this would be the spiritual development. By the way, some of these concepts I most of what I'm going to be talking about, most of what I talk about numbers comes from Shiv Charan Singh, what I learned from Shiv Charan on numbers, so it's Karam Kriya. But some of these ideas we study them in depth in the level 2 of Kundalini Yoga that we call life cycles. And we study 3 life cycles. This is only one of them, the 7-year one. And we call it the cycle of consciousness because we say that consciousness changes every 7 years. Now, if I mention that spirit is like an analogy, not analogy, but like a synonym for consciousness, we can see that this is like 7 years. My spirit, my conscious relationship of the world changes. Infinity says, at exactly 21, when COVID hit, I was for the first time staying at home, and there's when my spiritual journey began. I had nowhere to go but within, and learning many religions, as we said, not logic. Nice, Infinity, yeah. Nice. COVID was not nice, but yeah, good, interesting that you can recognize that. So exactly 21, so you were an early riser, right? The heat of the spirit, the heat of the spirit came when you were just beginning this life cycle. So that's interesting. Physical, psycho-emotional, and spiritual. You can see, for example, when we look at those people who depend on their physical body most, like sports people, for example, sportsmen, the peak of their performance is within these years. Mostly around here, yeah, mostly around here. As they get here, and by the time they get here, it's mostly gone. Actually, we look at football players and so on, they can kind of compensate the lack of physical capacity with their know-how to read the situation and having a good position to don't have to run this fast and this much. But mostly by the time they are 35, surely by 42 they are retired. Because this is the physical body in their premium, and this is already starting to come down. And from here on, it's already challenging, and maybe some physical challenges or disease, or you have to take very good care of yourself, and so on. So this is the physical part. Now, by the time you come to the second part, actually, by the time you come to 25, so in the middle of the 4th stage, that's when the brain is fully formed and integrated. It takes, sometimes we think that after adolescence, one should be like, the brain should be stable. Actually, I think from the neuroscientific perspective, the brain does not end up pruning and selecting what kind of neural pathways to emphasize until it gets to 25. So making strong decisions before the age of 25 is not necessarily advisable, and yet we will see that life demands of us to take some of the strongest decisions of our life by this cycle, not on this, but by this cycle. So that's challenging. But after 25, the brain is settled, the brain is formed, and now it's we are optimizing those pathways that we already developed, and we are developing our psychological capacity. Now, what we say in yoga is that the mind should cover the body. So this is like in the example of the football player who just knows how to understand the position and what's the best place where he can go so that he doesn't have to run as much as a young man. A young one doesn't care because he has all the physical stamina and strength, and he can just run. And the more mature player will just know and read it and go there. So the mind covers the body. The mind covers the physical limitations that are becoming manifest as we are coming into this second stages. So the mind covers the body. Now, as we progress and we go beyond in the final stages, the mind starts to have some challenges. Just like the body was experiencing challenges here, the mind here becomes sometimes more difficulty to remember words, or to remember faces, or to remember names, or just some cognitive abilities that start to deteriorate, particularly if you don't use the mind. Use it or lose it. Same with the physical body. If you are not using the physical body, then it's going to go down very quickly. And this 9 becomes like like the one cell, many cells. So it's like like a couch potato, or like just going into dust. Yeah, we can see the muscles being very weak and not being able to carry ourselves, and all sort of health issues that could be arising if we are not keeping a good, healthy relationship to the body, which will include a good number of things like diet, exercise, sleep, nutrition. Well, nutrition is diet, sorry. Relationship to sex, and a number of things that are very physical. And that's where yoga is really strong. Yogic lifestyle is very strong. That gives us all these tools to keep the body at the optimum throughout our life. We know the body is going to drop at some point, but we try to keep it optimum. The same way, if we don't use the mind is going down, and we are losing our capacities, and it's going down. So we have to take care of it, take care of the mind, exercise it, utilize it, do something that implies some mental exercise, even if it's just like a Sudoku or something, but we should be using the mind. However, the mind is degrading anyway. And just as we say that the mind covers the body, the spirit is supposed to cover the mind. So by the third stage, the physical and psycho-emotional capacity that is degrading should be compensated by the spirit coming in. The strength of the spirit, the resilience, the wisdom that has crystallized, a number of qualities that is just from the force of your spirit, you can just carry on. So that will be when it becomes more manifest, whether you have, what we say in yoga, crystallized your spirit. Yeah, the spirit comes in a diffused form. That's the 9 at the beginning. 9 is the highest number, so it's very high, like the clouds. So it's very diffused. And as it's coming down into life, it's crystallizing. It's like a drop of water that is freezing, and it's becoming like a little crystal of water. That's the crystallization of the soul. That's what we call the soul. Yeah, the spirit crystallized is the soul. And this is why it's called soul's journey, because it's the spirit coming down into the body, mixing up with the physical body, having this alchemy through it. And by the end, hopefully, we have become one point of light. That's the soul. We say the point of life is to become a point of light. Yeah? The point of life is to become a point of light. However, we came here mixed up. As we are departing from the 6th stage, we will talk more about these stages. I'm not running. I'm going to go deeper into them. I'm just doing an overview of it. As we will be coming out of the 6th stage, it will become more and more evident whether we are going up into becoming one point of light. This is the guru, going into becoming focused into one point ourselves, finding our own crystallization of our being, who we are, like crystallizing who I really am, to know who I really am. Or we are going to go down with the body. As the body drops down, as the mind and emotions start to flow down, we go down with it. And this is the sad part. Every stage is going to have its challenges. In fact, every life stage, every 7 years is going to have its challenges. But as we go beyond the 6, if we haven't overcome the challenges, it's going to get much harder. We say in yoga that changing a pattern, changing a habit, a life habit, after 42 is much, much, much harder than when you are 35 or when you are 28. So if you want to stop smoking, if you want to stop smoking when you are 28, that's already hard if it's an addiction. But if you are over 42, that's going to be even harder. It's going to be much, much harder. And actually, it's going to need more of your spirit coming down. So you're going to have to utilize much more the strength of the spirit. Remember, the spirit covers the mind, and the mind is covering the body. So you're going to not just to have a very strong mind, you're going to have a very strong will, the will coming from the spirit. So, but it doesn't mean that you cannot change any pattern. Even if you are after 42, you are capable of. There's a little bracket missing here. You can change things. It's just everything is much harder. Now, if you don't change your patterns and you go off with your physical body and your mind, if you are very attached to the physical body and the mind, you go down with them. And sometimes we can see somebody who reaches the elder years, and you can see that they become very grumpy and bitter old man. And sometimes it's just like a constant phase of disgust or like something unpleasant. Interesting, the concept of grumpy, the word grumpy. I like that word because it starts with guru, which is similar to guru. So you can find the guru in yourself and connect to the guru, the inner guru, let's say, and you can go towards the guru, going up into as one point of light, or you can become grumpy and, I don't know, dissatisfied with life and just reactive to anything in life. And of course, when you are going down in this line, you reject totally the possibility of any spirit that could be down here. Or not. Or you make the decisions that you need to make to change your perspective to start going upwards. And actually, these are the people that are more in contact with the spirit, those who come up here. And it's interesting, when you go to a church, you find mostly old people there. And then sometimes one could say, well, in a few years, in 10 years, these people will be gone and the church will be empty. And yet you go in 10 years and it's filled with older people again. And it's like the people who were in the midlife, now they became mature and suddenly they were concerned about what's going on, what's happening after life, what's going to come next. And by the way, next week I will be doing a video on that, exactly on what comes after death. So it's very nice that we are exploring the journey of life. When next video we're going to be exploring on next Tuesday, not next video, on Thursday I'm having another live stream, but on next Tuesday we will explore what comes in death in a lot of detail. So some people, as they get close to older ages, they start to consider what's happening after life, and so they have an opportunity to be pulled upwards towards the spirit. So the physical, psycho-emotional, the spiritual. And we can see also how in the physical part, this is where, let's write it in orange. This is the realm of karma. Karma is coming here. Karma determines what is happening to you through these ages. It's like, for example, your parents decide they want to move houses for whatever reason. You have no say in that. In these stages, you just go along because you have no capacity. You are depending on the caregivers. So you are along, how do you say that? Along for the ride, yeah? Wherever life is taking you. You are, by the way, let's not say you are passive in all this, because we say that your soul chose your family. So that the soul decided, I'm going to be born in that family with those particular karmic circumstances. So the karma that you experience in life, you chose it in some way, but you chose it when you were soul before this period. So at the moment that you come in here, you're not conscious, you're a child and you're still developing like a young man, or woman. You're not aware of the choices that you made before that made you choose that family, that made you move houses or move schools or change the friends, or whatever is happening to you is karma, and you are subjected to it, and you have to learn to deal with it. You have to learn how to understand what's happening to you. It's your story. Yeah, this is your story. This is how you set up the story. Later on in life, you're going to say, yeah, it's because this happened to me when I was a kid, because I was like this when I was a kid. And remember, in the first stage, 0 to 7, that's when the ego is formed. So everything else is like an echo. Yeah, it's like an echo of the ek, onkar. Yeah, it's like an echo of what happens in the ek, in the first stage. And whatever you lived and experienced karmically through the 0 to 7 years, every 7 years, you're going to be experiencing an echo of that, and your mind with your ego. And that's all the system of beliefs and values that you have created and accumulated, they are going to be utilized to filter your experience. And you're going to say, well, this is what's happening to me because of that. So that's the story that you are going to tell yourself. Now we know that this is just about the past. There is nothing we can do with the story. The story happened. We cannot change anything about it. Don't waste any time trying to change whatever happened in your story, whatever happened in this life. If you are here, don't waste any time trying to change anything here. This is what happened. The only thing you can do is you can reframe it to empower you. You can change the way to look at it, which is kind of rewriting your story, rewriting what happened to you. Change the way you tell it to yourself, because that's been proven also through a number of psychological studies that it's immense effect on life. How you tell yourself your story and how you rewrite your story, this is what is going to determine whether you can be a successful person and get to your victory or become a victim. Victim or victory, you choose. And partly you choose by the way that you look at your past, by the way that you look at your story and you tell yourself the story that, what happened to you. So this is your story given by your karma. Now, there in the cotton wool phase, this phase where we are going up and down and up and down. We don't know where we are. You could see a little, let me draw it in a very thin pen. It's like, let me do it like this. Let's see. Let me do it with another color. I think it will be kind of cute. This is the baby. This is the kind of symbols I use when I prepare yoga classes. Yeah, very, very, like stick figures. Little child. Yay. Adult man. Running. Yeah. This is the yogi stage. Let's sit down. Let's meditate. Yeah, as you are coming into here mostly. I mean, this is the opportunity where the spirit comes, and as you are coming here, you are becoming more and more into this stage. And as we go, let's put it here. We are going to be already with a stick, right? Not so early, but you know what I mean. And then eventually, let's not put it here because today, life expectancy can be much higher than 63, but this is the corpse pose. This is Shavasana. This is a whole Kriya. When we are preparing a yoga class, you can prepare a whole Kriya, and Shavasana means corpse pose. And we always end the Kriya with Shavasana. So you can explore how part of the yoga class is structured in this way to reflect life. So when we come into this period of life, you were walking, and then at some point you find yourself upside down. Then you find yourself like this, and then you're upside down again. You see how it's like it's turning like that. Yeah, you don't know what's happening. And during this period, if this is the period of your story, this is where we live our story, and then we tell ourselves the story. Farther on, as we come into this period, this is where you evaluate your story. This is where you reevaluate what has come, what I have done with what has come, the decisions that I made, and trying to decide where am I going to go with that. If this is the spirit coming in, not only the spirit as your spirit, but this is also the spiritual teachings. So, in the case of Infinite Stories is the book, by Deepak Chopra. It's like you come into contact with the teachings in some way. And I remember, I don't know what it is, but it's somewhere it says that just by the fact that you are alive, just because you are a human being in this planet, you are guaranteed to meet your teacher at least once. And then you may recognize him or not, or her. But the teacher, the meeting with the teacher and the meeting with the teachings is going to happen. Maybe you go in the street, walking in the street, and there's some loud mantra playing in this you don't know what it is. It's this yoga center that is on your way to work. And every day you pass, there is this mantra calling. Yeah, there's this mantra, and you, what are these guys doing? And you may be interested, and you go in, and then you let the teachings come into your life, or you may reject it. And what are these weirdos? And avoid it. But if you allow the teachings to come in, the teachings gives us clues on how we can reevaluate the story that came through our karma, understanding in another way, and remember, reframe it to make it work for you, to empower yourself. And out of the reframing of the story that we get, then we come into the next period of life, which is when we can avoid the karma by going into the dharma. We align ourselves with the spiritual teachings. We recognize the harmony in life when we are not fighting against it, and we align ourselves with that. We are in that alignment, in that harmony. We can rise towards this simple, one-pointed focus of light. Yeah, the point of life is to become a point of light. So that's the opportunity that you come as you are coming out. So here you evaluate your story, and here you may apply the dharma and start to move towards this one point of light. And so this is looking at it like in 3 parts, the diagram. There's something we could look at it also, and it's like a before and an after. And it can happen like this, like before the point of contact and after, but mostly it's around the middle of the diagram, or more towards the end. The beginning of life, in this area, especially here, everything is given to us. And we depend on that. We depend on our caregivers, our parents, and the people around us to take care of us from the moment we are babies on the most basic functions, the most basic needs. And I did a video on that, on the basic needs of a baby. If you haven't watched it, it's very interesting to recognize the needs that we have as adult humans as well. But everything is being given to us, and we are passives. We are passive, like characters in the movie, let's say. We are like secondary characters in the movie. And as this, we are collecting gifts, collecting education. We are learning things. We are educating ourselves. We are learning a trade. We are learning how to do a job, particularly. And this is accumulating. At some point of life, and this would be the middle point. The middle point is where things change. We should start considering about, what am I giving back? Yeah, this is about taking, and at some point is, what am I giving back? This whole journey is about maturity, physical, psycho-emotional, and spiritual. One of the ingredients that I found most clear of what is to be a mature person is whether you are taking or you are giving. The moment you start giving back is like a transition from, I'm going to be a subject of my karma, living fate, living my life as fate, written already down, or I'm gonna provide for others, I'm gonna share with others, I'm gonna be a service to others, I'm gonna leave something behind for others, your legacy. And rather than walking the path, the karmic path of fate, I'm gonna choose the destiny that I'm gonna be walking on, and find a destiny that is aligned with nature and aligned with this harmony, the dharmic harmony that is in the world. You find where your destiny is taking you. So, being a taker or being a giver. This is very connected to the video I did on forgiveness as well. I'm just, because we are ending the cycle of the number 7, the 10 videos on number 7, and touching upon some of the concepts that we were talking about in these 10 videos. When you are in this stage, okay, I have my mind games, or hey, I have my troubles, this is me. And at some point you have to say, enough about that. Enough about looking at my own navel. What can I do for others? And that it can be a smaller or wider circle. Some people is just, when they think about others, it's just their family, their closest family. Some is their extended family. Some is like they're nervous Their boss, no, neighbors or people around them, their office mates and things like that. Some people have an impact on wider communities or even the world. So how much impact are you going to be having? How much you are going to be giving back? That's something that at some point of life you have to be asking yourself. Now, if by the time of death, all you have done is accumulating things, and your professional development, for example, which is something that is going to be, as you are advancing in this, there's going to be a professional development as well. If your concern is about growing the bank account, growing the business, growing, I don't know, the possessions that you have, the cars, the houses, if this is all you are concerned about, the level of attachment you have to that, as you are sensing that those things are dropping, including the body, you are going to feel more and more dissatisfied with life. Satnam Fernando, good to see you here again. Welcome to the stream. We are just going into the 7 life cycles, the life through 7 years. We will go more in depth on every one of these. We are seeing an overview now. We are looking at it like an overview of it, and we will go into detail in a moment, very, very soon. So by the time I come to my deathbed, it is not about how much I accumulated, but how much have I left behind me? How big is your legacy, let's say? How much do you leave behind for others? That is going to give you peace. The peace of mind you need in order to go to the beyond, that's going to be based on that. Have you given something back? There's a kind of, thank you, Fernando. Which is one of the reasons why I find, at least in the West, when I say in the West, it's like my culture, what I perceive from my culture. I am from Spain, so what I see in Spain is that when somebody gets older, many of older people end up alone. They end up in their own houses, or they end up in houses for older people. I don't know, how do you say in English? There has to be a way. In Catalonia, we call them casal d'avis, which is like a building, and then there's all the old people go to live there, and they take care of their needs, they give them food, and they try to distract themselves. They have some activities. Sometimes they play games, cards, and things like that. But mostly it's just old people with old people. They have no... it's not all of them, but many older people end up there. And it's really sad because imagine you've grown all your life into a mature man or woman, and everything you have learned from life, whatever wisdom you have gathered, is just lost. It doesn't go back to the early generations. It disappears. And that's kind of sad, that the most valuable thing we have accumulated, let's say, the wisdom that we gather from living a long life, now that we have long lives, now that we have medicine and some medical procedures and hygiene and all sorts of things that help us to live beyond these ages even, and yet the more we go towards these ages, the more isolated we become. And we don't become one, like one with everything and one with God, but we become one little old man isolated in his room in a building filled with old men and women, and you are just waiting for the monthly visit from your grandchildren or something. And that's really terrible. I remember how much impact it had when I was in India. When I went there only once for 2 months, it was really a very intense experience. In this couple of months, I was in an ashram. I was in a number of them, but in one ashram I saw there was this sadhu there. Satnam John, hello, welcome to the stream. Hello. Just sharing a little story about India. So I was in this ashram on the foothills of Arunachala, the mountain where Ramana Maharshi lived. And in this ashram, beautiful people living there. There was this sadhu. And the concept in India about a sadhu is like you have lived a professional and family life. You've fulfilled everything that is expected of you from society, and then you decide that it's time for you to dedicate your life to God. So you retire from the family, you go into an ashram, and they just give you some food. You have the basic minimums. You don't need great luxuries. You just dedicate yourself to meditate, your life to meditate. And there was this sadhu Kumarananda, in this ashram, and the ashram, it was an ashram that was taking care of children who were orphans. It was mainly for orphans, but actually all the children of the village would come anyway because they loved what they were doing in the ashram, and they were learning lots of valuable things like how to cook and how to build your own hut and things like that. So the kids were not just playing, but they were learning a lot of things, and they were in constant contact with this older man, this older gentleman, the Sadhu Kumarananda. And I found it beautiful. I remember beautiful image. The children so happy to go to pick up the food to bring to the sadhu, and the sadhu so joyful and eating with them. Then the food was finished and they would take his plate and wash it themselves. Nobody told them to do that. Nobody had told them. I actually asked. Nobody was asking them to do any of that. And then they would cut and sit with him and he would just talk to them. I didn't understand anything because I didn't speak the language. I think it was, I don't know, maybe Hindi or some dialect. But all the children were listening to him, and he was having this interaction with them. And I was like, how incredible. The old man passing on his wisdom to the children. And they wanted it. They didn't have to sit there. They wanted it. So incredible. And again, very sad. In my culture, this is not that common. Where are we? So, should we go in detail? Let us go into a little bit more of detail. I think just this is already valuable, this introduction that I just gave, but we can extract more juice out of this. Let's get more juice out of the diagram. Now, by the way, I mentioned this is something we explore in one level 2 of Kundalini Yoga. In that level 2, we spend 6 days exploring the topic. So and there we go into the neurobiology and the physiology, and we go into the how the brain is evolving and our capacity to handle emotions and many factors. We go into a lot of detail. So as usual, when I explore one of these topics, I go as much in depth as I want in one video, but is never finished. This is so much more that we could extract. But if you can have an idea of what this can bring, then you can explore this by yourself and go into more depth, or you can do the training to learn more about this. Yeah. But okay, let's go into a bit more details. So these life stages, they don't necessarily all have names. We could give them names. You could say that this is infancy and early childhood. This is like middle childhood, and this is adolescence, growing into already like a young adult, and this would be more like mature adult, and this is later midlife, let's say, midlife, and then late midlife going into early maturity or older life, and then going into later midlife and then into elderly. Yeah, towards the 73 to 72 onwards will be, I don't know if we can call it elderly. I think this golden age, we can say it. Okay, that's a nicer name, golden age. This would be the golden years. So this is kind of a name that we could give it to them, but anyway, the first ones are very clear with the name because it's much more studied. We can see much more clearly the transitions of what's happening around the first stages than we can see over here. However, I have to say that at any period during this, particularly through here, we can get stuck. So we can reach the period of adolescence, and for a number of reasons, we may never come out of the adolescence. We may be a 35-year-old trying to live life as an adolescent, or we come out of it, we explore life, we have a midlife crisis, and we go back to adolescence. We go back to the patterns that we used to have when we were adolescents. That's really classical. There's a certain, you see the going down with the line. Remember that what we want, if I may draw it in purple, would be to go like this. Explore the middle path and rise. This would be the ideal. But there may be a regression. As we are coming down to the older ages, the mind starts to stop functioning. The body is already in the process of, how would we call this? Like going into dust. No? From dust we come, to dust we go. So it's like slowly deteriorating, and we can deteriorate with that. When I say we, I mean the spirit, the consciousness. We can go down with that, and we are regressing in our behavior. So you can get stuck, and you can also regress. But there is some indications of what does it mean to be mature at these stages. So that's something that is going to be good to explore. Well, the first stage, 0 to 7 years. Oh, and by the way, another thing. I keep having ideas of things to mention, but yeah, there's so much about this diagram. Like we've already been, it's already almost an hour, and we could talk so much about this. Every one of these stages is associated to one part of the date of birth. And when we have to go deeper into the date of birth to actually understand this, in order for doing that, we need to go more into numbers. Now, fortunately, you're going to have a lot of that on the next second part of the course, because this today is the last video, number 7. And next week is a special week. We will talk about death. So what comes after the life's journey, what comes here. And by the way, there's some period here, and then it starts again. So there's this transition, yeah? And after that, after next week, so the other week, we will start right away, probably right away. If I have some pressing topic before, we will do another extra video, but probably we'll just start with number 5. When we go into number 5, we will explore the date of birth. Now, when we explore the date of birth, we will see that which day you were born and which month you were born is very different, and they have different qualities, how they affect your life. And every stage of your life of the 7-year cycle is influenced by one of the numbers of your date of birth. That's going to sound a little bit mysterious now, but depending on your date of birth, it's going to be, you're going to live one number or another depending on the stage. But yeah, we need more language on numbers. We need more knowledge on the date of birth in order to explore that. So we're not going to go into that right now. We will just take it as it is: first stage, second, third, and fourth, and so on. And the numbers that we will explore are this one, the number with the stage. Maybe we can also add the numbers to see something significant, but mainly we're just going to go with these 9 numbers of the stages. So we're in the first stage. This is the infancy. This is the beginning, number 1. This is the first steps of life, literally and figuratively. And this is where we begin to have our first contact with the world. And this is the starting point of what's going to happen next. In a house, this would be the foundations. Whatever happens from 0 to 7 years, these are the foundations for our life. I mentioned that in these 0 to 7 years, the ego forms. And the ego forms according to the karma that you had, the kind of family that you chose to be born into, and the influences of those around you. So if you have the karma and you choose a family, I was very blessed, and I chose a yogic family, so the ideas and philosophy of yoga was around me from very early childhood. I have some experiences with yoga since I was maybe 3 or 4 years old, maybe even earlier, I don't know, because it would be in my life. I would be breathing that air, so that would be forming me. And then through life, I tried to escape yoga, and then I ended up in yoga, back in yoga. No, but in these early stages, this is how you create the values, the beliefs, that are going to influencing all of your life. This is where they are going to be formed. So this is the beginning, the foundations of the house. You can later on go down there and, tweak them a little bit. And as I mentioned, rewrite the story to empower you. But this is your foundations. This is where the physical development is most at its highest. Yeah, the body is growing very, very quickly. The mind is also starting to have a good development. The cognitive development is exploding as we are going forward, particularly until 25, as I mentioned. But this is the very beginning of that. Now, one thing about this stage, I mentioned that we are receiving. We are receivers in this stage. We are givers in this one, hopefully. Now, in this is where we are most receivers. We need care for everything. And that means that we are very vulnerable to the kind of care that we receive. So depending on how we are treated during these ages, that's going to have a huge impact on how we are going to value ourselves, how we're going to see ourselves. Number one, if we link it to the first chakra, that's the bottom one, the one that is in contact with the ground when we sit on the ground, is the link to gravity. So it's weight. So the things that happen here will have the more weight to everything that you're going to be living in your life. And you may even not give yourself weight, not give yourself value by how you saw yourself in the eyes of those who were taking care of you. So very vulnerable to those who are taking care of us. That's the first stage, the infancy and very early childhood. As the childhood advances in the middle or advanced childhood, this begins to be less about mom and dad. There is a particular range of years for relationship to everyone. So 0 to 7 years is particularly 0 to 3, because also this 0 to 7 is like the ego is formed, but the first 0 to 3 years is when the ego is forming, and the 3 to 7 is like it's reaffirming itself, let's say. And then it repeats itself again and again. But this 0 to 7, the 0 to 3 years, in yoga we say this is the time that one requires to generate their own aura, their own field around them, even psychic field. From 0 to 3 years, the baby is still dependent on the mother's aura, and also the father, but less important in that age bracket. So the influence of the mother is going to be paramount, and from 0 to 3. And if it's a healthy influence and healthy relationship with the mother in the 0 to 3, it will extend very strongly from 0 to 7. But from 3 years onwards, and particularly from 7 years onwards, the emphasis switches in the baby. That is not so much about looking to the mom, but more into looking to that. So from mom goes to that. And it will depend on a number of things as well, whether the baby actually has some strong male figure in the family that he can have as a reference. Nowadays, in the society where we live, where there is so much divorce and so much single parenthood, very often kids don't have a mature man as a reference next to them. Now, particularly in this middle childhood, 7 to 14 years, that's going to be so important to establish the relationship to the masculine. Yeah, this is the relationship to the feminine, because the baby, whether it's a boy or a girl, doesn't matter. The baby relates to the mother mainly, so it sees the mother and by contrast understands itself. So, my mother is a mom, is a woman, I am a man by contrast to a woman. I mean, you don't think in those terms when you are a baby, but there is a different dynamic, a boy with a mom or a girl with a mom. Similarly, from 7 to 14 is a different dynamic, a boy with a father or a girl with a father. They look for different things, but both are very, very important. So if the father is not present during this period, and not just a father, but also any male figure that could be an uncle or some other significant one, then that's going to cause all sorts of troubles of the, let's say, the void of not having had your father there. Unless you are really mature your relationship to that void and you learn to, again, rewrite your story so that you can empower yourself from that void, mostly you're going to feel some feeling of void that is going to cause some sort of insecurity or some psychological suffering in some particular way or another. I will not want to say trauma, but it could manifest as trauma as well. So the relationship to mother extends to the relationship to the father, and these 7 to 14 years it gets more important, but also the kid is becoming more aware of their place in the world in connection to others. So every stage is going to be pointing to the next. Every stage is going to be pointing to the next. So in this second stage, we're already seeing what's going to be coming next, and the next stage is going to be the social stage. So the boy and girl who is growing from 7 to 14, it's starting to become more and more aware of their relationship to others, other peers, others in their social environment. And I don't think peer pressure is that strong yet. It starts to be, and issues like bullying and, I mean, because of the how you were handled during these 0 to 7 years, and whether you have a healthy adult male presence in your life or not, you are going to have a strong capacity to deal with the world in a way that you can self-affirm yourself in the world so that you are not prey to bullies. For example, I'm just taking one example. Yeah. So in school, whether you are strong feeling that you have weight, you remember the gravity, if you feel that you weight, you value, then you are going to be more self-empowered, and when somebody says something to you, you are not going to react to it in the same way that somebody who feels that they don't value themselves that much, and then when somebody says something nasty to them, they feel very acutely affected and then emotionally upset. And this is the emotional and mental stage, which means that here it's not even developing yet. We are learning the emotional language, and we are learning the emotional relationships, but this is like the very, very early stages of emotional maturity. The emotional maturity comes here. This is immaturity yet. And so you say something nasty to somebody, and a kid will not care. Another kid will start crying, and if they start crying, they can be praised to bullies. So they become aware that they have a role in society. Up until 7, it's more about whether they are fine in their family. If they are happy in their family and they are at peace in their family, they will not care too much. But after they go from 7 to 14, it's going to start to have an influence those who are around them, particularly after 11 years old, which is also depending when the hormones start kicking in, because it could be at 11 or it could be down to 14. So depending on where the hormones start, then you can have an earlier adolescence, let's say. I said that we can get stuck in one of these, but also some of them may advance a little bit. They can show signs a little bit earlier. And in fact, they may show signs, but it's not particularly healthy to relate to them in that way, because they are not mature enough to be treated as they are adolescents. And sometimes you can see these little girls who are dressed up, painted, they allow the parents somehow allow, or they want, or they motivate the children to start behaving like adolescents, which, like makeup. Children which are still 12 years old wearing makeup. And makeup is a fascination. It's an incredible thing. Children love to decorate things and decorate themselves, even, from the time they are 2 or 3 years old. But somehow, the moment that they are starting putting makeup on, is like they are making up for something. What are you trying to make up for? It's like you are not enough, that you need to make up for something. So that decoration is not just about making something beautiful, which is no problem with that. There's nothing wrong about wanting to appreciate beauty, and in myself and in others. But it's about, I'm trying to compensate for something. And that compensation, that making up for something, then you can see it from very early, and then that's when you see kids which are 12 years old, 13, 14, and they are already pretending to be 16, 17, 18, and people treat them that way. And that's not healthy, because even though maybe even their bodies, sometimes they mature very early, from 11 or 10 even, they can start having some hormones kicking in. It seems like they are growing into adults. Emotionally, psychologically, their brains is just totally not mature. So to relate to them in that way, that would not be healthy for them. And then there's the whole concept of that transition from this stage into full-on adolescence. That's when the transition from paying attention to what mommy says, paying attention to what daddy says, now is relationship to my peers, to those who are similar ages to me, brothers, sisters, and friends and enemies. So you don't care too much in this stage what the teacher is saying in school. Is what your friends say in school. So this is where peer pressure becomes out of the charts, and you will do crazy things to be accepted and to feel that you belong to somewhere. The second stage is where the emptiness comes. So you want to feel that you fit into this structure. Number 3 is like the triangle. So there is a society forms like a pyramid. Where am I in this pyramid? Which is my place? Which is my position? And what is my role in my group of friends? And you want to have a group of friends, and you want to belong to the group of friends to not feel lonely. You don't find the reference of your parents satisfies you anymore, even though if you cultivated a good, strong, healthy relationship to your children, particularly in communication during the early stages, that communication can carry on all the life. So it doesn't mean that they cut off from you. And there is a good number of lessons that you can apply on these stages to prepare for this stage, so that when they become adolescents and they are troubled by thoughts, by what their friends are saying, rather than dealing with it themselves, which emotionally they are not mature enough to do it, they will go back to you as their mom or dad to ask for your support and your opinion. So that's something really important. Yoga also gives us a good number of clues, and psychology as well. That would be very important. But most kids will want to have a place in the society, a place in the. You go to the school, there will be. Those are the more sporting people. Those are the more intellectual ones, and those are the more fancy ones, and those who are more fancy clothes or something like that. And you find yourself, where do I belong? And then if you say, okay, I'm going to try to belong there, you're also going to try to incorporate some of the beliefs and the values of that group to make it part of yourself, so that you feel that you belong. So you are molding yourself to that group, just so that you are part of them. And so this is the place where you mold your identity. This is the beginning of the molding of your identity. Up until now, it was more about what you believe in, what you think about, what your story is. But now it's about what you identify with, and so the sense of self becomes more clear in the way that it is transforming. Let's say not transforming, but forming, and you become aware of that. And you want to think, well, what do I believe in? In adolescence sometimes is when you find that you think you have all the answers to life. You know how things work, and you know what's best, and your parents don't really understand. They are all older. They are not in contact with the culture and with the world. This is where you come in contact with the culture. So you believe that you know better. You will later on you will have to reevaluate and reassess that thing that you believed. But back when you are here, you think you know better, and so your mom and dad as a reference doesn't become so strong, and then that identity gets formed, and it will become solidified as we go along. But the central aspect of the third stage, it's societal. It's about the society. It's my relationship to society. How are we doing? So far, so good. Those of you who are online right now, am I going too fast? Is it? Am I going too slow? We'll never get here. No, we will get here. But hopefully it's being useful. If you're finding anything interesting and you're just watching this video already recorded, you can drop some comments in the chat. How was it for you in these stages? Which was the most challenging one for you? What was the thing about that stage that was challenging, and what helped you to overcome it? And did you overcome the challenge when you were in that stage, or it took you until you were to 35, let's say, to overcome that challenge particularly? Because that can happen. You get blocked in one area, and then in this stage where you self-assess and self-reevaluate, then you finally overcome the challenge. That can happen very, very often. Well, 21, 2 and 1 is 3. 3 is connected to this 3. 14, 1 and 4 is 5. We didn't talk about this, but it's kind of interesting as well, because 5 is the number of, we will find here in the middle, but we will see as we move. I'm not sure whether we should look at this number or not, but 28 is 10. 10 is all or nothing. All or nothing. And this stage, to me, when I look back at this stage, and not when I look back in my life, but when I look at all the young people now who are in that stage, this is the all or nothing stage. It's incredible how we have created a structure of the way the world works. And again, I don't know which other way it would work better. I don't know. I'm not sure about what would be the best way, the best approach. But children, adolescents who are becoming young adults, they are forced to take the most important of their decisions right there. Actually, already from here, and especially coming onto here. At 17 years old, a total lack of maturity, psycho-emotional maturity, and you're asked to decide whether you're going to start a degree and which degree is going to be, and you're going to do a career on that or not. Maybe you're going to do something else. If something else, then what? Because that's going to have to support you economically. And there's all this pressure to make these strong decisions that we are just not mature enough to deal with them. And many people will just opt for saying, well, I'm going to go to university, study something, and hopefully by the end I studied it, I figured out what I want to do with that. So that's challenging, because 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, by the time you come out of the higher education, you are now you are in serious trouble. Now you really have to make big decisions. Number 4 is the number of decisions, and the 28 making the 10 is all or nothing. So what you're going to do with these decisions? What's going to happen? This is the point of commitment. Let me write it here. It's so significant that it requires me writing it down. Because do you remember in the other video when we were talking about 7 steps to heaven or 7 steps to hell? The thing is, what we are committing here, how conscious are we of that? How aware of that being part of our destiny are we? Do we know that that's the best commitment we can do? And we often start career development into something that is not necessarily the best for us, but we are just go along with the decision. Maybe what our parents told us is best, or what the society told us is best, or what our group of friends decided that they wanted to study. So we go with them, the one that felt closer to us, or some similar circumstance that is going to make the decision for us. In any case, we made the decision, we made the commitment, and this stage of life is when we are investing more energy into what's going to be our future. This is where we're going to start a career, also, fourth chakra is the heart. This is already starts here in the adolescence with all the hormones kicking in. This is when we start to understand what is love, start to having romantic relationships, and this is when you can deeply, deeply fall in love, number 4. So this could be the beginning of a family. Initially, traditionally, this diagram would be more compressed because we didn't live up to 63 years. And so everything would be much compressed. And by the time somebody was 18, or even 21 is a full-grown man or woman, 21 back then. And, having the capacity to vote is something to indicate that you are at a grown person. Well, in some places it's 18, some 21. But in any case, these 18, 21 years would be considered like an adult person. And back then, you would be married already, and you would be maybe having your first kid. So not only this stage would be the beginning of a career, but it could be also the beginning of a family. Nowadays, many people, particularly in the West, they choose to delay that commitment to, let's say, develop their personal career first and see where it goes. And I will get married later, and I will see about that later. And then you find that many young men and women, 28, 30, 35, even 40, and they still haven't found a stable partner that they choose, that they think they're going to carry on their life with, that they're going to establish a family with. And maybe they don't have kids eventually, or maybe they have kids by the time they come into these stages when they feel that the pressure is the biological pressure now becomes very strong, because after 40, this is going to go down really quickly. So particularly fertility for women is going to be very strong pressure to decide whether I'm going to have a family or not. So this is the point, the ideal, the general point of where we make these commitments to whatever we decide that we do in life. And then we go into this loop, this middle loop around here. Now, this area of the loop, remember, this is 0 to 7 is where we establish the ego, and this is where we form the beginnings of our identity. And here is where everything is turned upside down, and we question everything. We question the identity that we identify with. We question what are our thoughts, what are our beliefs, what do the decisions that we took here mean? Where are they going to take us? And is that where I want to go? Is that my destiny? Is that my higher destiny? So this is the area of reevaluation. The number 5 is the middle point. The middle point is where, from going up, you turn to going down. Is the point of inflection. So this is where the inflection of life happens. This around 28 to 35. It's called middle adulthood. We could say middle adulthood, yeah. And everything has been, we are going on developing the career, going on developing the family life. If we haven't established it yet, we seriously consider whether we're gonna establish it or not soon enough. So as we go along with the years, it has to be more present in everyone's mind, whether they're going to have a family or not. But this is a development, is growing, is maturing. Everything is turning upside down. And I was just getting distracted by this 35, which adds up to 8. And you can see a little bit of an 8 here. 8 is the number of chaos. And you can sense some chaos here in these stages. But it's midlife. And by the time we come to 6, if this was commitment, the other side of the 4, that's the 6. Remember, 4 and 6 are connected, yeah? 1 and 9, 2 and 8, 3 and 7, 4 and 6. So the other side of this bubble is responsibility. So by the time we come out from 35 to 42, especially towards 42, this is the late midlife, and it is where very often many people go into crisis, some form of crisis. So midlife crisis just means crisis is just an opportunity to reevaluate where you are and where you are going. In this case, it's where have I gone into this bubble stage? Where were the decisions that brought me where I am right now? By the time you are 35 to 42, let's say you are 40, and you look and you're like, well, I've been developing my professional career all this much because that's what I wanted to do, but now I have no family, for example. Or you've been investing so much in your family, now you have young kids. By the time you get to here, if you started the family Because you can see this like that. If you start family here, then the children are started in this stage here. So you can see them in parallel, right? As they are gonna go into adolescence, you are coming out into this stage, and as the kids are gonna becoming more adults and more independent, then you are left more by yourself to find out that now you are by yourself, or maybe you have a significant other that you live with. So the consequences, the consequences of the commitment or the decisions that you made, here's when you start to live them, and that's when you have to take responsibility. So from here is where, after the whole reevaluation, you have to consider, well, am I really moving towards my highest destiny? Or am I trapped in a vicious circle, vicious loop that's going to bring me down? So it can be really challenging. That's why it's the midlife crisis here. And this is where, as I mentioned, many people try to rescue back the youth by regressing, by getting a very young boyfriend or girlfriend or something similar. That's very typical regression. Or maybe, starting to go to the gym and try to build up the physical body again and get into shape and try to pretend that you are a young person and get everyone to say, oh, how young you look, or something like that. Or doing some surgery, some, what do you call that? The surgery of like beauty surgery, aesthetics. I don't know how to say that now, but yeah. So that comes in around that age, middle life crisis. And the idea is that after this middle life crisis, we determine if you don't take responsibility here and you actually push yourself towards your destiny, which you are able to do it up until here. Remember, after 42, to change some habit is going to be much, much harder. To come from here up is much, much harder. So it's recommended, if you are in these brackets, to do it when you are still before this age. But every age has its own things, right? You can always do it, but it's much harder. So if you don't do it here, we are now going into the down line. But 42 to 49 there is a higher side as well. I'm just drawing it here, but it doesn't mean that you are going down. There is a higher side as well. Let's go into this, 42 to 49. This is the seventh stage. And by the way, I was just thinking, 6 is when you face the future. And the F sound, you face the future, and you can face it with faith, or you can face it with fear. Somehow I was just thinking, this is the F stage. Maybe the FU, have faith in you, is what I mean. That's what the F means. Have faith in you. So this is where faith is so important. And hopefully, because by this end, remember, the spirit has to cover the mind. Hopefully you have some reference that's going to be spiritual. That your reference is not your physical body, because as the body degenerates, your reference is degenerating. So hopefully you have some spiritual reference that you can go back to, and it's going to pull you up. Particularly if you come out of here with you don't like your life, you better find the way that you like, the way it's facing towards the future. Otherwise you're going to be, again, very disappointed with yourself. But when you get to this stage, hopefully, and I don't want to put down, it would be here, 42 to 49. This is the stage where you set up the mold. This is already adulthood, maturity, the beginning of maturity. Not old age yet, but mature. This is where you set up the mold of what is to come. By here, you know that you have probably less years to live than years that you have already lived, which makes you go more into the less receiving, into the more giving, which means that you focus into what am I going to leave behind, what's going to be my legacy. And so you start setting up a backup, setting up a graceful end to my career, finding how is it going to finish. If it has to finish, how is it going to end? Setting up a retirement plan. This is when you start considering, what am I going to be leaving behind? This is the place where you are more strongly aligning with that, and creating the mold for what is to come. Because 8 is chaos. I mentioned the 8 here with the 35. And we know there could be a chaotic phase again as we come into the 8th one. So we want to create a strong mold that it can give us a support to go through the chaotic stage. So that's important. And hopefully by the time we are in this stage, we are already beyond the middle age crisis. We already created the new form, the new shape, the new mold that is going to support our spirit. It's like a mold for the spirit. Imagine you are doing cookies and you are going to do chocolate cookies with the shape of a moon. Well, the moon mold would be what you set up in the 7th stage, and the cookies would be the spirit. So this is a setup for what's going to carry the spirit onwards, especially in the longer years, in the older years. Hopefully it makes sense the way I'm saying it. So, where are we? 8th stage? 56, 49 to 56 years old. Now, of course, if you didn't get out of the crisis, this is just going down, this is just getting worse. You are facing the last stage of the professional development particularly, and you are seeing yourself towards old age. I shouldn't put this here, it should be farther along, but you start to see yourself like that. You start to feel that you're not as young anymore. 56 also, is it 56? 18, 36, 52. 52 years old, so in the middle, there is a big change in your vitality. Because there is another life cycle. This is the 7-year life cycle. There is a 18-year life cycle which affects our vitality. Maybe we'll explain that some other day. But by the time we are 18, 36, and then 52, that's it, then your physical capacity, your prowess really, really goes down. And so if you were, through your midlife crisis, you were again going into the gym to pretend you have a 20-year-old body, you're going to have a big shock here. And feeling close to the retirement, not being ready, maybe not being ready economically to what's coming. This is the beginning of some health issues. Maybe you are not ready to face those health issues. Maybe they are strong enough for you to enter into another shock of what is to come, is telling you what's to come. That could be really, really upsetting and chaotic, the chaos of the number 8. And yes, hopefully we reach that spot when we are ready, when we have acquired enough wisdom to realize that we can face towards the destiny rather than go down with the body. Some people, the first indications of sickness can be like a wake-up call. And you may say a big disease, like sometimes, something I say sometimes, it's not very nice, but I say a cancer in the family a cancer of someone may heal the whole family. You know, like sometimes having somebody with cancer in their advanced stage, and then the whole family is confronted with the possibility of death, and they can heal relationships. People who haven't spoken for years, they go back to speaking, to take care of the person, to give support. And the very same person maybe is confronted with a strong sickness, and then it's a wake-up call. It's telling you, look, you better look towards here. Otherwise, you're going down here. What are you doing? Are you getting ready for this? And it could be strong enough to go in that way. Or you may just gracefully, sweetly, preparing yourself like Sadhu Kumarananda in India. I'm getting everything ready in my life, in my family, at work, ready for me to drop it and zip, go with the spirit. Yeah, go into Sadhu life. So hopefully whatever mold you created here is supporting you through the 8th stage, so that by the time you come to the 9, which is the retirement age, generally, 56 to 63. Some people retire a bit earlier, but sometimes, mostly is around this age. Hopefully you have prepared enough. Hopefully you were setting it all up. You reach mastery of your life. You know how life is. The more I advance in years, I am in this stage now. So the more I am towards here, I realize that hopefully I'm towards here, not here. The more I am here in this stage, I have the feeling that life is just very simple. And it's difficult sometimes for me to look back and remember how I was when I was a teenager or even before teenager as a young kid in school, and notice how could I worry so much about things that were really not important, and how could I complicate my life so much, especially in this period? How did I complicate myself so much? Life is so much simple, so much simpler than that. And I guess is when you are coming close to the 1 and the 9 comes the simplicity, because one is one. There's not much to say about one, so it's very simple. So hopefully by the time you come to the 1 and 9, life has become simple. Remember, this is linear life. This is the loop. This is the linear. So you are just moving in this direction. Everything is simple. You set up the structures for your retirement to make sure that everything is set up in place. You are leaving a legacy. You're leaving something behind. Hopefully you have enough strong connection to your family, to your community, and you can be part of it, that you can share what you gathered all throughout the other stages. And then, 63 onwards, yeah? Onwards. Let's utilize that time to share and share and share and service, offer to others, pass on the wisdom, pass on the legacy, and just be in peace until the time it is to depart, and be ready for a graceful exit. So that's the preparation. If you remember, the 7, we were preparing the mold to get me across the chaotic area, so that by the time we come to the 9th stage, the mold can go away, the mold can decompose, and the spirit goes on. And then is this little old man or this little old woman, very simple life, smile in the eyes, twinkling in the eyes, light in the lights, lights in the eyes. I was thinking of a little Spanish poem now. Las niñas de tus ojos, the daughters of your eyes, the little lights which blink in your eyes. And just be here, having mastered life on earth, realizing, wow, what a journey has been. Looking back and, wow, I'm happy the way it has been. I can rest in peace. I can go in peace. That's hopefully the path where we are moving into. That was quite a journey. We will go into here. What happens here? The tunnel and the beyond, the death, and what's beyond. We will do this in next video, in the next week. It will be outside the concept of the Karam Kriya course. It will be like a standalone video, but we will explore this. I think it's going to be very interesting. I hope you come along with us for that video. For this one and for this 10, if you were here, you watched all the videos of number 7, the 10 videos of it. Wairu, congratulations, you are certified. You can put the stamp, certified, Karam Kriya certified, for that introduction on number 7. And I hope you enjoyed it. If you enjoyed this video as usual, just drop a like on it. You can comment, you can share with others. Thank you for everybody who is supporting the stream. Thank you for everybody who is supporting also economically with membership. If anybody wants to become a member, you can just join the channel as well. And congratulations for making it all the way to the end of number 7. That's it for me. Thank you very much. Until Thursday, if you connect on the next live stream. Sadnam, thank you.